I was just bullshitting. And you know this, man.
The film Friday, 1995, a cult comedy that gave the world the iconic phrase, "Bye, Felicia," the crazy antics of Smokey, and the legendary front porch scenes for decades, was seen as a light-hearted story from Los Angeles. Millions of fans laughed at Craig's sharp dialogues, quoted the jokes word for word, and never imagined that behind the laughter, there was a much darker reality. Today, the cast themselves reveal what was hidden off-camera secrets, scandals, and tragedies that can forever change the way you see this movie. What you're about to hear will shock even the most loyal fans. When Friday hit theaters in April of 1995, no one expected that a modest project, filmed in just 28 days with a budget of $2.3 million, would turn into a legend. By Hollywood standards, that amount was nothing more than a drop in the ocean, but the creators took a risk and poured everything they had into the film truth, humor, and the raw spirit of the Los Angeles streets. The result exceeded all expectations. The film grossed over $27 million at the box office and instantly became a cult classic. But it wasn't only about the money. Friday captured the atmosphere of South Central Los Angeles with a level of authenticity audiences had never seen before. It was just one day in the lives of ordinary people, yet that simplicity was its genius. It was here that millions of viewers first saw the unforgettable duo of Ice Cube and Chris Tucker, a pairing that instantly became symbolic of the 90s. Their chemistry was so electric that the characters' lines spread like wildfire. Bye, Felicia turned into a cultural meme long before memes even existed, and Smokey became an icon of streetwise comedy. Critics noted how the film managed to combine the lightheartedness of comedy with the seriousness of social drama. Beneath the laughs were real themes: poverty, unemployment, the pressures of street life, and the search for identity in a world where every day felt like survival. That unique mix made Friday more than just a comedy. It became a cultural code for an entire generation. Today, it's hard to imagine the 90s without this film. It was quoted in schools, at parties, and even in television shows. Rap culture, which was already gaining massive influence, embraced Friday as part of its legacy. The movie became a mirror where millions of young people saw themselves and their world reflected. But what few knew at the time was that behind the film's easygoing, carefree vibe lay tension and dark secrets. While audiences laughed, the cast and crew lived through an entirely different reality, one filled with conflict, pressure, and personal struggles. While Friday looked effortless on screen, the reality behind the camera was far from simple. The film was shot entirely in a single neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles, often under the scorching California sun, with the cast and crew working long hours for very little pay. Many of the actors were newcomers, and the studio wasn't convinced the project would succeed, which meant the atmosphere on set was tense from the very beginning. Ice Cube, who not only starred as Craig, but also co-wrote the script, pushed for authenticity at all costs. He wanted the film to reflect the real life of his community, the humor, the struggles, the small victories. But this insistence sometimes clashed with the production team, who were worried about budget overruns and delays. Chris Tucker, who played Smokey, was the heart of the comedy, but even he struggled with the intense schedule. Tucker was relatively unknown at the time, and Friday was his breakout role. He poured every ounce of energy into making Smokey unforgettable, yet the pressure to perform was enormous. Crew members later admitted that the atmosphere on set was chaotic, hilarious on screen, but stressful in reality. There were also unspoken tensions. Some cast members complained about being underpaid, with reports that certain actors received as little as $5,000 for their roles, despite the film later grossing tens of millions. Others pointed out the lack of basic comforts on set, describing the production as guerrilla filmmaking, fast, cheap, and exhausting. Still, what kept everyone together was the belief that they were creating something unique. The cast bonded in strange ways, sharing jokes between takes, cooling off on the porches of nearby houses, and even dealing with the occasional interruptions from locals who wanted to be part of the filming. Looking back, the actors often recall that the energy on set was both inspiring and draining. What audiences saw as an easygoing day in the neighborhood was, In truth, a battle behind the scenes, one that left scars, frustrations, and, for some, lasting regrets. As the years went by, the laughter from Friday began to fade, and what replaced it was a series of tragedies, scandals, and heartbreaks that forever changed the legacy of the film. Chris Tucker, whose portrayal of Smokey turned him into a star overnight, never returned for the sequels. The official story was that he wanted to move on to new opportunities, but in truth, Tucker struggled with personal choices. He later admitted that his religious beliefs and lifestyle changes clashed with the drug-heavy comedy of his character. At the same time, rumors circulated about tax troubles and missed opportunities, leaving fans to wonder what could have been if Smokey had stayed. Other cast members faced even darker fates. Anthony Johnson, who played Esau, battled health problems for years before tragically passing away in 2021. Tiny Lister, unforgettable as the neighborhood bully Debo, also died in 2020, leaving fans stunned and grieving. Their deaths were a painful reminder that behind the laughter stood real people whose lives were far from easy. And then there were the arrests. Several actors from Friday faced run-ins with the law, ranging from minor offenses to serious charges. While the film showed the lighter side of street life, the reality for some of its stars was harsher, mirroring the very struggles the movie had tried to depict with humor. For Ice Cube, the weight of these tragedies was personal. As both the creator and star of the film, he often spoke about how proud he was of Friday, but he couldn't hide the sorrow of losing so many friends and colleagues along the way. The dark side of Friday wasn't in the jokes or the story itself, but in the fate of its cast, proof that success on screen doesn't always protect you from the harshness of real life. Decades after Friday first hit theaters, cast members began to speak openly about what really happened behind the cameras, stories that fans had never heard before. Ice Cube admitted in interviews that the original idea for Friday was much darker than the final script. Early drafts leaned more toward drama, focusing on the desperation and dangers of South Central Los Angeles. But Cube insisted on injecting humor because, as he explained years later, in the hood, we laugh to keep from crying. What fans didn't know was that some of the funniest moments in the movie were improvised on the spot, often inspired by real-life incidents Cube and his friends had witnessed growing up. Chris Tucker, meanwhile, finally confessed that part of his decision to walk away from the sequels wasn't just about religion. In private conversations, Tucker revealed he was deeply uncomfortable with how much Smokey's character was tied to weed culture. He feared being typecast, and later admitted he barely got paid. For Friday, reports suggest less than $10,000, even though the film became a massive success. For years, Tucker said he felt cheated, watching the franchise grow without him. Other actors shared painful truths. Faizon Love, who played Big Worm, revealed that the set was so low budget that sometimes extras and even minor cast members didn't get meals on time. He described the filming as guerrilla style, where the cast had to rely on each other more than on the studio. Regina King, a Hollywood powerhouse today, once mentioned that being part of a film like Friday in the mid-90s was considered a career risk. Many thought the project would flop, and she could have been stuck in urban comedy with no way out. Perhaps the most shocking confessions came from family members of the late Tiny Lister. In interviews after his passing, they revealed he often struggled with depression, despite his tough guy image as Debo. Lister would joke about fans always seeing him as the bully, but privately, he felt trapped by that stereotype. His friends said he longed for more dramatic roles, but Hollywood never gave him the chance. Anthony Johnson, who played the hustler Esau, had a similar story. Just months before his death, he admitted in an emotional interview that he never earned much from Friday and felt forgotten by the industry. He even called out the studio for not supporting actors who helped make the film a cultural milestone. These revelations painted a far different picture of Friday than fans had known for decades. What was seen as a light, hilarious snapshot of life in South Central was, for many of its stars, the beginning of struggles that haunted them long after the laughter ended. Nearly 3 decades after Friday first hit theaters, the cast's lives have gone in drastically different directions, some inspiring, some tragic, and some filled with shocking twists that most fans never expected. Ice Cube has become far more than just Craig. He is now one of the most influential figures in entertainment, with a career spanning music, movies, business, and even sports. His Big Three basketball league, launched in 2017, has grown into a legitimate professional platform, showing Cube's determination to keep building new legacies. Yet, even with all his success, Cube never forgets Friday. He has often spoken about the struggle to bring the long-awaited Last Friday to the screen, admitting that studio politics and creative disagreements have stalled the project for years. Fans are still waiting, and Cube insists the story deserves a true ending. Chris Tucker, who will forever be remembered as Smokey, took a very different path. After skyrocketing to fame with Rush Hour, Tucker turned away from Hollywood at the peak of his career. His religious beliefs and discomfort with Smokey's weed-smoking image played a huge role in his decision not to return for the sequels. He also faced major financial troubles. Reports of owing millions in back taxes made headlines in the 2000s. Despite those struggles, Tucker has recently come back to his roots with stand-up comedy tours, where fans cheer the moment he mentions Smokey. For many, his departure from the Friday sequels remains one of Hollywood's biggest what-ifs. Nia Long, who played Debbie, built an impressive career, becoming a beloved actress known for her roles in the Best Man series, Boys in the Hood, and Empire. She has spoken proudly about how Friday was one of the stepping stones that gave her visibility early on. Today, she continues to work steadily and has become a voice for representation and equality in Hollywood, using her platform to support young, Black talent. Faizon Love, unforgettable as Big Worm, has also continued acting, appearing in films like Elf and Couples Retreat. But Faizon is best known now for his brutally honest interviews, where he exposes the harsh realities of Hollywood. He revealed that he was paid less than $3,000 for Friday, despite its box office success, and has accused studios of exploiting Black actors in low-budget films. His candor has kept him in the spotlight and made him a controversial but respected truth-teller. The tragedies, however, weigh heavily. Tiny Zeus Lister, who terrified audiences as Debo, passed away in 2020. Friends and family later revealed he battled health issues and quietly struggled with depression, despite always being the intimidating tough guy on screen. His death devastated fans who grew up fearing and loving Debo. Anthony Johnson, the hustler Izal, passed in 2021 after years of health struggles. His death was especially painful because he had publicly spoken about financial difficulties and the lack of recognition he felt from Hollywood. Other cast members have had quieter journeys. John Witherspoon, who played Craig's father, became one of the most beloved comedic actors in America, continuing to work in television and stand-up until his death in 2019. His iconic bathroom scene in Friday remains one of the most quoted moments in the film. Anna Maria Horsford, who played Craig's mother, has continued acting in numerous films and shows, often cast as a warm but strong matriarch, echoing her role in Friday. Some supporting actors stepped away from Hollywood completely, appearing only occasionally at fan conventions. For them, Friday was a fleeting moment of fame, yet one that secured them a permanent place in pop culture history. Today, Friday stands as both a comedy classic and a bittersweet reminder. For fans, it's a timeless celebration of humor and community. For the cast, it was a launching pad, but also a weight. Some rose to greatness, some were lost too soon, and others still live in the shadow of that unforgettable summer day on the porch. And as Ice Cube keeps promising one last ride, the question remains: can Last Friday ever recapture the magic of 1995, or will it only serve as a farewell to the faces we've already lost? For years, fans have been waiting for one final chapter, the long-promised Last Friday. Ice Cube spoke about it publicly as early as the 2000s, fueling hope that Craig and Smokey might return to the porch one last time. But despite constant rumors, the film has remained trapped in what Hollywood calls development hell. The story begins with ownership. New Line Cinema, the studio behind the original trilogy Friday, Next Friday, and Friday After Next, held the rights to the franchise. Ice Cube wrote multiple drafts for Last Friday, but executives reportedly rejected them, claiming the scripts were too dark or not commercially viable. Cube later admitted that he wanted the final film to be more serious, reflecting on aging, community change, and even the deaths of beloved characters like Pops and Debo. But the studio wanted another lighthearted comedy. the creative clash stalled progress for years. Chris Tucker's potential return as Smokey became another point of speculation. For decades, fans begged for his comeback, and Tucker himself hinted at maybe returning. But in interviews, he admitted that religion, lifestyle changes, and a desire not to repeat old roles made him hesitate. Still, whispers persisted that Cube and Tucker discussed possible cameos. Nothing ever came of it. Meanwhile, the deaths of key cast members cast a shadow over the project. John Witherspoon, who played Craig's father, passed away in 2019, making it nearly impossible to recapture the original family dynamic. Tiny Lister's death in 2020 further complicated any potential storyline involving Debo. These losses not only devastated fans, but also left the creative team uncertain about how to honor the legacy without the original cast. By the mid-2020s, Last Friday had become a myth, a movie fans talked about but never saw. Ice Cube repeatedly called out New Line Cinema, accusing the studio of dragging its feet and disrespecting the franchise's cultural importance. At one point, Cube even suggested he might buy back the rights himself to finally make the film. But as of today, Last Friday remains unreleased. What was meant to be a final celebration of Craig, Smokey, and the neighborhood has instead turned into one of Hollywood's most frustrating unfinished stories. For fans, the lost sequel is both a dream and a wound, a reminder that sometimes even the most beloved films never get the closure they deserve. Almost 30 years after its release, Friday is more than just a comedy, it is a cultural milestone. What began as a small-budget project has grown into a timeless piece of American pop culture, woven into the fabric of music, language, and even politics. The influence of Friday is everywhere. Phrases like "Bye, Felicia" became household sayings, later resurrected as internet memes and quoted by celebrities, politicians, and athletes alike. Smokey's over-the-top expressions and Craig's deadpan reactions still circulate on social media, turning scenes from the film into viral GIFs decades after they were first shot. For younger generations, Friday is no longer just a movie, it's a shared cultural language. Hip-hop culture embraced Friday from the start. Ice Cube's dual role as writer and star connected the film directly to rap's rising dominance in the 90s, and countless artists have referenced Friday in their lyrics. The film's soundtrack, filled with West Coast anthems, became just as iconic as the dialogue, cementing the movie as a cornerstone of the hip-hop generation. Beyond entertainment, Friday broke barriers in Hollywood. It proved that a film made outside the traditional studio mold, with a mostly black cast and authentic storytelling, could succeed on a massive scale. It inspired a wave of urban comedies in the late 90s and 2000s, from Next Friday to How High and beyond. Directors and comedians often cite it as proof that our stories matter, that authentic voices can resonate with the mainstream. Even academia has taken notice. Scholars analyze Friday as both a comedy and a social commentary, a film that, beneath its humor, captures the economic struggles, community bonds, and resilience of South Central Los Angeles. What was once dismissed by studios as too niche is now studied as a cultural landmark. And yet, the legacy is bittersweet. The deaths of John Witherspoon, Tiny Lister, and Anthony Johnson remind fans that time has passed and the original cast is no longer whole. The elusive Last Friday remains a dream, a missing puzzle piece in a story that feels unfinished. Still, the power of Friday endures. Fans continue to gather for anniversary screenings, streaming marathons, and fan conventions. The film remains a rite of passage every new generation eventually discovers Craig and Smokey on that porch, laughing at the absurdity of life while hinting at something deeper. In the end, Friday is more than just a comedy. It is a mirror of a time, a place, and a culture that changed the way America looked at itself. And as long as people quote its lines, share its memes, and laugh at its timeless humor, the legacy of Friday will never fade.